At the end of this tutorial, we're going to create some beautiful solar flares on our sun. And this is one example of how we do it. And one example I did using the same methods is, I guess, over here. And as long as you get the colors to match, you can get a really nice, interesting effect. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Before we begin with the solar flares, let's just clean up our scene so that we know what is going on. So for example, collection 2, I'm going to just call this sun base. And I'm going to chuck my sun into the sun base. So anything to do with the base of the sun would be in that collection. I'm going to rename collection 1 to camera and lights. And I can minimize that because I won't be working with that. Minimize the sun base, don't need that. I'm going to create a new collection. Oh, hold on, let's delete that. I'm going to click over here and create a new collection. And I'm going to call this solar flares. And with solar flares selected, the first thing I want to do is press Shift A, and we're going to make use of a plane. I'm going to press numpad 7 for top orthographic view. I'm going to press G, X, 10. Oh, let's make it more than 10. Let's make it 40. There we go. So it's far away from our scene. So it shouldn't disturb our scene. Once you've got this, you want to press Tab and go into edit mode. Press 1 to make sure you've got edge select. Select everything. Press U, unwrap. Change your viewport over here from shader to UV editor. If you're still in edit mode, you'll be able to see it, which we do, which is perfect. Next thing you want to do is press tab, go into object mode, and you want to press SX. You can bring it in like this, make it nice and thin. Then press tab, go into edit mode, press 1 for edge select, select these two edges, press S and scale it out. So you got this type of shape. And quickly, the last thing you want to do is select everything here. Then press G, Z, oh not Z, sorry, Y. So you're grabbing it and locking it on the Y axis. And you want to bring this up here until this dot is not touching this line, but very close to it. Something like this should be perfectly fine. Right, now that we've got that done, we can press tab, go back into object mode. We're going to go to our modify properties. We're going to add two modifiers. The first one would be a subdivision surface modifier. Keep it on simple and ramp this up to 4 or higher. If you've got a slow computer, 4 is more than enough to do the job for this. The other thing you want to add is a displacement modifier. And we will add this later on. We'll just leave it there for now. Next thing you want to do is go to your shader editor and you want to create a new shader. Let's rename this. I'm going to call this solar flare and press enter. And I'm going to scroll up and down until I find, there it is, this. And we can delete this, principal.bsdf. And what we want to do is let's select our corona. Alright, so we've got our corona animation there. And we've got our fade highlight. Let's click on our sun base quickly. Let's rename this actually to sun base. And we've got our high frequency here, we've got our low frequency here, and edge. Now I'm going to use the corona one sec. So we're going to make use of this, the corona animation. But we need to try and capture this as well. So I'm just going to bring this down here so it's easier to select everything. Press Ctrl C, then go over here and select your plane, which we can rename solar flare or solar particles or solar flare 1. And we'll go over here and we will press Control V. First thing I'll do is I'll select this group, press X to remove it, and I'm going to bring this up over here. I'm going to connect this, and because I've got the solar plane selected, I'm going to hover my mouse over here, and where you see numpad 1, 2, and 3, below numpad 3 and next to numpad 0, there's a del button with a full stop. Press that full stop, and it will take you exactly to the object that is selected. Now with that object selected, we are now going to connect this as the factor, and we're going to have to change this to render view mode so we can see. So that's looking pretty good, but I think we can get a slightly better result. Currently, when we move this, if we animated this, it would be moving in both directions, which wouldn't feel right. So what we want to do is pretty much select the parts of this animation we did that animates it the opposite direction. We only needed to animate it in one direction. So we'll select everything quickly. Including that. And once you've got everything selected, press Ctrl X. And now when you use this, it only moves in one direction. Perhaps if we change to material view mode, it might, might be easier on the computer. We'll see in a sec. I guess not. So that's fine. We'll leave it on render view mode. I think my computer just froze again. Okay, yeah, we'll have to leave it on render view mode. It's fine. We need cycles for this. Right, let's just make this a little bit more organized, a bit neater. So I'm going to chuck this over here. Chuck this over here. And lift this up. Lift this up. We can leave this down here so we know where to animate this when the time comes. And I don't think we need this vector noise. We could use a simpler noise. So we'll just select these two things, press X to delete, Shift A, and we will go to our textures and we will use a noise texture. Here we go. And we will connect this. This will also be a lot lighter on our computer because we're not using as many factors. All right, now looking at this, we probably want to increase the strength a bit. Just use your own discretion here. Remember, black is where it's going to be transparent with the cycles render. Also want to adjust the size here. Let's put this on 1. And let's mess with the scale here. What if this is on 1? 1.25 to 1.75. Okay, that looks okay. We just have to adjust the colors a little bit better. If we invert this, what happens? It's also kind of touch and go. You kind of just have to play with this until you get a look and feel that you like. Flip. Okay, that looks pretty good. And perhaps just a little bit brighter there. And I'm quite happy with that. Also, let's just make this a little bit neater. Select this and just bring it in a little bit closer over here. Right, so I'm just going to grab all of this, press Shift P, hold on, select this, Shift P, and we'll name this group Texture and Animation, because this is where we get our texture and animation function. And we just adjust this. If we lift it up, it moves upward. So it's got that flamey, fiery effect that looks pretty cool. Leave it on 1 for now. Doesn't really matter. It's just moving the motion. However, we also want to press Shift A here. Mix RGB. lift this up over here. And now we want to make it darker on the sides and at the top where it's got a bit of a fade effect, which is quite important. So let's get to that. Right, so now we can press Shift A, Textures, and we're going to make use of the gradient texture. There it is. And with the gradient texture selected, let's connect this to second color. Press Control Shift Click. Let's actually connect the factor to the second color. And with this node selected, Control T, so we get all these other options. Now, if you remember, we created a UV map for this, which means it makes sense for us to use that UV map by connecting it here. And now, the first thing we're going to do is the side-to-side motion. So we have to just try and get this to look right, or up and down motion first. Let's do the up and down motion. So if we make this 90, what happens? If we make it negative 90, there we go, that's perfect. That's exactly what we want, but we probably want to add some more power to this. Right. All we have to do now is change this from mix to multiply. And let's select this, Control Shift Click, so we can see how it looks. We need to increase the factor to 1 so it's maxed out. You can see it's faded at the top, it's brightest at the bottom. But for this to really pop, we need to use a converter called a math node, switch to power. And if we increase this, we can get the desired effect. So I'm thinking something like that looks pretty good. And yeah, I'm quite happy with that. Last thing we need to do here is Shift A, color, wait, let's type in color, color ramp. And if you look closely over here, even though it's fading correctly, we don't have enough control over how bright we want it to start or where we want to start it to fade from. That's why we use this color ramp. So, for example, if we want it to be a bit brighter in the beginning, we just move this across like this. Like it's all the way bright, it's too bright. But if we chuck it here, currently it's like that. Let's just zoom in. .75. Here we go. So it'll be nice and solid in the beginning. And now we've got the fade from the top here, but we don't have the fades on the side. So we kind of have to select everything. Press Shift D, chuck it on top here, and then let's zoom in here quickly. Holding Control and click on this and put this in 1. Control Z, let's try that again. Click, holding Control, click. You can let go of Control and move this into 1. Oh my goodness. Control Z. Try that again. There we go. Sorry about that. And that's looking pretty good. Control Shift Click. Let's actually see how this looks. So currently the fade is the same, and we don't want this fade to look like this. Let's take this all the way back here. Let's add one. Let's select this white one over here, and let's make this white one 100% black. And let's make this gray one 100% white. So now we've got dark, bright, dark, but we need it to be on the other side, so we go back here to our mapping. And if we make this 0, that should do the trick. And I think the issue here is the power. So if we put this on 0 and we just lift this up, it looks right, but it's not acting right. It's not working how we want it to work. So I'm just going to press Shift D, chuck this in over there, Control X, because we want the color ramp to work within this, and I'm going to press Control Shift click, so we're looking at it from this perspective. And now, there we go, that's working much better. Control Shift click, and we can adjust this. This is for the side, so something like that looks pretty good. And then over here, on this power one, because it's only using 2 points, you can have the power here. Technically the power could be on the other side of this as well. Let's do that. Control C, Shift D, sorry. Chuck that in there. Control X. Yeah, this is a much better result. You want your power after your color ramp. There we go. So I'm quite happy with that. And adjust it to your own preference. This is all a visual thing. I think that looks pretty cool. And I'm going to actually select all of this and press Shift P. And I'm going to name this Fade of Flare. So we know that this is how we operate the fade of the flare, whereas the other one operates the animation. And we should be able to connect this now into the FAC. And press Control Shift click, and we have that. And now we can just play around with the colors till we're happy with this. I'm going to make this 10, a lot weaker, perhaps. I'll have to play with this once I add it to the scene, because it's hard to tell, as is. Right. Alright, so now we've got our solar flare selected in this box here. Click on your camera to be out of the camera mode, and press that full stop below the numpad 3 and scroll in. Where is it? Selecting solar flare, solar view mode. I actually don't see it here for what's going on. Okay, well that's weird. Anyways, if we go to solid view mode and we take a look at this, it's a bit boring. And the way we fix this, if you remember, we added a displacement modifier. Now we're going to press new. Then we're going to go to our texture, and we're going to use a cloud texture for this. And you could put this on render view mode to see how it looks. Okay, it's here, there we go. You want to right click and shade smooth if you haven't. And now we want to play with the, let's go back to our modifiers. You could up the subdivisions, but this seems to be more than enough. So what we really want to play with is the number one, the size. I'm going to put mine on 0.36. Put the depth on 3. I'm actually going to adjust the size. Scroll up. Until I get something interesting. Okay, 0.93. Use your own. Now I'm going to make it 0.36. I'm quite happy with that. Shade smooth. There we go. That's looking interesting. And we don't want the bottom part here to move like the top is, because it's coming out of the sun. And the way we do that is we press Object, and we go to, well, first we press Tab, Edit Mode, and over here we can switch to the UV editor, and we've selected 2 points. Make sure you've got points selected. object mode. Let's try that again. Edit mode. Alright, so now that we're in edit mode, select these two top edges, go to the object edit properties, add a new vertex group. I'm just going to call this flare top, and I'm going to make sure that the weight is on 1, and I am going to assign, and to see the effect you go to weight paint mode, and you can see that blue means 0, red means 1, which means all the motion will happen at the top and very little motion will happen at the bottom when we animate. Let's go back to object mode and let's press Shift A, and I'm going to make use of an empty plane axis, Control ZX, sorry. First thing you want to do is press Shift S, cursor to selected, which is over here, then press Shift A and add an empty. And we're going to name this empty Solar Flare 1, so I know who it belongs to. And you could move it out the way a little bit, and we're going to select this, go to our modify properties. In our displacement settings, number 1, we could change your vertex group to the specific vertex, and the coordinates we want to change to an object, and the object you want to use is your Solar Flare 1. Now when you select this and you press G to grab it and move it up the Z axis, look at that, it's looking pretty cool. What we'll do once we're done. Cool, let's move on to the next phase. Alright, press numpad 7 to be in top orthographic view. Select both these objects while we're in object mode. Press Shift D, X, and we'll bring this over here. And we'll select this. And we will add another modifier. Let's use a simple deform modifier. We're going to set it, let's minimize the stuff we aren't using for the moment. And let's choose bend. Let's select this. So that messes with that, but we'll need to select this. Shift S, cursor to selected, Shift A. And we will need to make use of an empty, and we'll use another one called plane axis. GX, chuck that over there, select this, and this is just called empty. I'm going to say bend flare, and we'll select this and we'll choose bend flare, and when we rotate this, let's select this again, let's choose Z. G, X, so we left it right over here and we just rotated this. To about there, selected this and just increased the angle. That would look pretty good. And all we need to do now is Shift D again, X, and this time around I'm going to leave this on 45. Now we just, before we play with these sizes more, let me just create one more. Well, it's best to create this one because it has all the functions. Shift D, X, and once again let's go crazy. Alright, numpad 7. So let's select all of these. G, X. Just so we can see what's going on, let's select the sun. Hover your mouse over here on the other screen. Press that full stop below numpad 3. Select camera view so we can see it how it ought to look. And with the sun base selected, we're going to go to the particle properties. We're going to add a new particle system. We're going to rename this solar flares. And what we need to do here with these solar flares, we need to create a new collection. And we're going to call this solar particles. And we're going to chuck all 4 of these solar particles into their own collection. Everything else is just designed to... In fact, we've gone overkill. We could have used 2 for all of them, and they could all, or 3 at the most, but we went crazy. But it's fine, doesn't really matter too much. And choose the sun base again. And with the emitter selected, let's make this... We'll adjust this now, but it's all about feel now. The art comes into this. Let's make the velocity 0. Make the start and end the first frame. Make the lifespan, I don't know, never have to look at it, just 99999. So we never have to worry about it. And go to force field weights, make gravity 0. Go to render, change this to collection, and select the solar particles collection. And you can up this, just try, how does one look? Way too big, but still pretty badass. It looks like a flame. Pretty cool. Alright, let's get back into this. 0.15. Okay, we're going to have to adjust that once we've moved. Select rotation quickly and change this to normal. There we go, it's starting to look a lot better. Make the randomness so that they're not all the same size. If you want, you can make it 1. That's the maximum randomness. I'm going to make mine 0.8. So some are as large as 0.15 and others are smaller. That's essentially what it means. And what else can we do? If you wanted to go the extra mile, you can select how much of each you want to see. So currently there's 250. If there's 250 and let's say we want 50 of each, however, the first flare we want 100, we would do this and we'd change the count to 2 and every other one to 1. Therefore this one would have 100 and this would be 50, 50, 50. And that's how we could play around with that. Other thing we could mess around is the seed. If we don't like the distribution, we can just click this a few times until we get a group that we like. But at this stage, I'm quite happy with that. Let's see what else I can do. Alright, physics, angular velocity. I think this is everything in this section. The one issue I have when taking a closer look at this, it seems that all the rotations are the exact same, which is a little bit boring. So we don't want to mess with this randomized rotation, but we do want to mess with the randomized phase rotation. And let's max it out to 2. If we press the camera view, take another look, that looks a lot healthier. Another thing we can do is we could, for example, select this, press SX, and make it a lot thinner. And you can do the same with all of these if you think they're too thick. SX. With this one in particular, I'm going to press Tab, go into edit mode, select these 2 points, scale them in more, select these 2 points, scale them more like that. Tab, object mode, and this, SX, there we go, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to select, I'm going to change this back to the shader editor, and I'm just going to play with the color a bit because I don't like the color so much. What if we make this 20? The other thing is maybe adjust the size. Let's go to back here, and this is just touch and go. We're pretty much done. We're just trying to find out what works. Holding shift for a little bit more control, and you kind of want it to stick out of the aura a bit, just a little bit. Here we go. So it's still noticeable. Now I quite like that. It's looking good. And you could play around. The color's not looking good in my opinion. So let's play around with that. And we could also select this base and mess with the seed. And see if there's a different random distribution that we like of the flames. I'm just going to put 25 in and hope it's good enough. That's good enough. It's interesting. And then I just want to adjust the color of this a little bit more until I get something I'm a little bit more happy with. I think that's probably close enough. Anyways, if you enjoyed this tutorial, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, if you're still not done yet, you don't like the amount of flares that are sticking out, obviously you can go back to the particle system and just change the number over here. So maybe if we wanted only one, we wouldn't notice it. But if we, hold on, if we wanted it less, maybe 200, let's see how it looks. We would get that. Let's try 150. Let's try 100. And it's all to do with your individual taste. 175. Okay, I quite like 175. It looks pretty good. Yeah, so I'm done. I'm going to render this out now, and please don't forget to like and subscribe. Cheers. Just to make you aware, I have adjusted some of the sizes. I try to make the color match a bit better. Made the strength of the emission only 10. I just pressed SX and SY on this shape to give this weird effect. And the other shapes, I just made some thicker, some thinner, just so that we get this kind of result. So that it kind of blends in, it matches, but it's still, you know, it can still pop. But yeah, that's about it. Anyways, I'll see you in the next tutorial. Another quick tip, an interesting setting that I wasn't a fan of, and I've been looking at, is how these lines look. All we need to do is click on any one of these over here, go into the texture and animation, and we can just modify the texture over here, and maybe just bring it all the way back so it's more blurry. And we could also move this back. Just, some ideas of how we could try and break it up a little bit better. Also maybe adjust the scale here. What happens if we make it 1? Or 0.1? 0.1's got a more smooth effect. 0.3. I actually prefer that. So that's what I'll do. It looks more like a proper flare. And let's zoom in again. Let's see what happens when we adjust the detail. I'll leave the detail on 5. Let's make the roughness 1. Let's make it 0. Doesn't really make much of a difference. I'll leave it on 1. And let's mess with distortion. Let's make this 100. Let's make this 0. Doesn't do much, 0.5. But the scale does play quite a large role into making it look more like light is coming out, like proper solar flares. Yeah, and if you want, just play around with these. Decide how thick you wanted SX to thicken it up. Zoom in and see how it looks. SX. This one over here would be this weird one we created, SX. I actually quite like that shape, it's just different. And let's find a circular one like this, SX. I actually like it the way it is by default. And yeah, so you can kind of just play around with that. One thing I'm not a fan of, let's select this one here. Unfortunately, this one is so different from the others. It's more noticeable, it's more prominent. It's called solarflare.006. So when we select the Earth base, and we've got our particle settings, and I actually want to change this. So if I make this 4, make this 2, make this 2, make this 1. So it's just a proportion. It'll make these squiggly lines a little bit more rare, less noticeable. And yeah, I'm happy enough with this. Yeah, so if you enjoyed this tutorial, once again, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and hopefully that's the last time I'm saying it in this tutorial. Just upping the numbers, changing the seed to 20. Honestly, 25 look quite nice. And you can just decide on your side what you like. These are very, very prominent. I think I need to make it even less than that. Let's make the first group 8. Second group 4, third group 4, and that should take care of that problem where the squiggly lines are a lot more scarce, so it doesn't look too weird. And if you want to go extra far, maybe even make this 16, 8, and 8. This is really about art at this point. Okay, the squiggly lines are very rare now, and I quite like this end result, and I think I'm done. Yeah, please don't forget to like and subscribe.